Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of whatever this is called, the podcast where, unlike other podcasts, we talk about things that interest us, and you hear us talk about it. I don't think any other podcast. This is the only format that does that,
Only one.
which is really interesting. So that's why we're getting the sponsorships and the brand deals. So look out, America.
We
So
just
I
got
am
colon blow, right? That was our
colon
first
blow,
one.
colon.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep, we're fine. They're still finishing out the paperwork, but look forward to that next episode. I am Scott Taylor, as here as always with Mr. Steven Garcia. Steve, how you doing?
Fantastic. I can't wait to jump into this. I spent a little bit of time cultivating this list or curating this list. I don't know which word is better, but and in doing so, I revisited some of this stuff because there's stuff that I've listened to and that then I've kind of gone away from just because other stuff would come in. But yeah, so it was nice. It was a good refresher. How about you? How are you doing, Scott?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm excited to dive into this. This is something we hopefully we'll do a little regularly,
Yeah.
at least every couple months or so when we start building up batches of things that we're into. We all have that friend that just goes, "Oh, you like movies? Have you seen this one?" And just gives you that list of movies, or yeah, I'm looking at you, Steve. That gives you a list of movies or TV shows or whatever, and then you end up with this long list in the back of your head of things you should do for a friend, but you feel bad because you haven't watched it, but they were really passionate about it.
Justice League War.
Yes, I know, Steve. I know. I'll get there. But we've each brought one movie, one show, one book or book series, and one band to the table, covering everything from hidden gems to cult favorites in how have you not seen this yet staples, right? Think of it less like a homework list from us and more like two friends enthusiastically showing their favorite stuff, shoving it into your hands and saying, trust me, you'll thank us later. That's what we're doing. We're going through some of these different media types, pop culture things that we want you to know about, that we're into, and either we've recently got into or just are at the core of us, something that we've loved for a long time. So where do you think we should start, Steve? Do you want to start music, books,
Let's see.
TV,
Where did I
or
start?
film?
Yeah, let's start some music, man.
Okay.
I got one, and I got an honorable mention. Did you want to start, or did you want me to start?
You can go for it. Go
Okay.
for it. I'm going to switch over to my music thing here, so I'll be ready when we're good to go. And yeah, let's hear about what you think we should be listening to.
Well, back in July, I started writing some my own streaming series. It's a plug for me, and in between writing sessions, I would decompress by listening to a lot of music. Go down the YouTube channel or YouTube rabbit hole with this band who I had seen, I think, maybe a couple, 2-3 years ago. I was looking for, sometimes what I'll do is I'll go through music on YouTube to cull, or kind of not steal, but be influenced by some drum beats. Cause I'm not a drummer. I use a drum machine and whatever, this and that. Anyways.
They have no soul, Steve.
Yeah, I know.
Drum machines have no soul.
Unless you want to play drums for me, then
I will. Poorly, but I can do it.
And I started so I saw this band and I was like, that's a cool drum thing. Fast forward to July of this year, saw that band again. I was like, oh yeah, this is the band that I was looking at. And man, they just evolved to such a degree that it's kind of I don't know, it's kind of cool. Anyways, the band is The Warning. You got to get into this band. There are three sisters from Monterrey, Mexico. And there are three sisters and guitar, drums, and bass. They use some backing tracks live, so they're really tight. But they first went viral in 2014 for their cover of Metallica's Inner Sandman. And there were, I think at the time, it was 14, 12, and 9. This is the bass player's the youngest. She was 9 years old. So anyways, they went viral. They got on the Ellen show. They went and did a semester at the Berkeley School of Music in Boston. Then they got all these offers to be signed and all this. And their parents, who are not in the industry, were just like, nope, we're not ready yet. and so they stuck around Mexico and their hometown in Mexico City, and they just played gigs. They would just play shows and really developed. They released an album in, I think, let's see, let me get this said. They released an album in 2017, which was 21st Century Blood. It was an independent label. They just released it themselves. And then in November of 18, they released Queen of the Murder Scene, which is a kind of a, what do you call it, rock opera kind of thing. Tells the story of a woman who gets caught up in her own kind of ego, and it's a great album. The jump between these two albums is phenomenal. Then in 2022, they released Air, which is, they got signed to a record label, to Lava Records. And then just last year in June, they released their latest album, Keep Me Fed. Now this one will blow the doors off any kind of rock band lately. And I think you and me, Scott, we're talking about, I think we were talking about the albums that the albums that we play front to back with no skips. I think I was saying something like there's no really main rockers, that you can point to now. Well, this is what kind of filled that void for me. They're really talented. They're really tight. Even their stage presence is just something to kind of see, because they put on a show, and it's not a fake show. It's not like, woo. I mean, they do a lot of like talking to they engage the audience. They're really good, tight, like I said, and the stage presence is the thing that gets me. It's because it's so natural. The drummer sings too. She sings. They all really sing. They do 3-part harmonies, and it's an amazing band. I think this should be on everybody's playlist. The Warning from Monterrey, Mexico. That's what she always says. We're 3 sisters from Monterrey, and they've played like all these festivals in Europe. This last 2 years, I think, were the first couple years that they went over to Europe and played all these festivals, rock festivals. And man, I can't say enough. I could go on and on about this band, and I think you should check it out. Any questions? Do you have any questions for me there, big guy?
Number one, how dare you? Number two, no, I feel nowadays, because we have talked about rock and how it's hard to see like a new up and coming rock band nowadays. You don't see it very often. You have the stragglers of like Foo Fighters carrying the torch through multiple decades,
right?
But you don't have anybody like brand new picking it up and grabbing onto it. And I kind of feel like the internet is to blame for that a little bit, because as much as it can spread stuff all over the place, it also puts us in our own little pockets. And so what you like is what you like. And before, you could get a mainstream rock band that kind of everybody would end up liking. And now you don't get that. People are just in their very specific, like how many different types of metal there is. There's trad metal, there's doom metal, you have all these different niches. Yeah, and people just stick to that niche. And it's hard to find people that cross over. So these festivals, I think that's the place where it is nowadays. I feel like you have a rock band like this, they're going to start on the lower stage, and you're going to see them work their way up. Now, they may not be the headliner on one of those stages ever, but they're going to get some solid recognition from their true fans and build their way up. And maybe they will get up to headlining one of those stages one day, but at the very least, they'll work their way up, and they'll be a staple in those events.
Yeah. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, I went down the rabbit hole on YouTube, and I was watching shows from like 15 and 16 that there's a couple of songs they still play in their set today that they wrote back then. That's how good they are. I mean, they were writing songs in their early teens that they still play now. They're all in their 20s now, but and they have different things. They have like a Slipknot feel to them, but they also have like what's that band that's wake up, watch it deliver it on the table. What's that song?
Oh, I think that was Candlebox.
Oh yeah, that was Candlebox.
Yeah.
Yes. But they have like tastes of metal of like Iron Maiden. They have like the hair bands. There's a little Twisted Sister in there. and they just do it with such energy and ferocity. But still, then you watch an interview with them, and they're just so down to earth because they're sisters. They bicker a little bit, not anything about serious, about anything serious, but they know what they're doing, and that's one of the appeals to me, is to watch it from this place of like purity. They weren't like, and that's what, when it plays into their kind of stage presence, it's not, you could tell it's not manufactured, because it came from this real place, and they could have been signed at 14 and 15, but they were just like, no, we're not ready. We need to get some seasoning. We need to play. And there's some shows that I've seen in like from 16 and 17, and it's there. It's a little chaotic in a good way. It's like they still haven't, come together totally yet. So it's a little like raw, and they're not as tight, but the feel's there. Everything's there. And then you fast forward, and there's a song called Dust to Dust that they wrote when they were young. Now they're playing it now, and now they're, the drummers on the drum riser, they're playing these huge, like 8,000 seat places and selling it out. They have to play 3 nights just to satisfy all the fans, and it just reinvigorated me, because I feel like for me, we, and you and me too, like we grew up in an age where there was always some rock thing to kind of glom onto. It was like, in the 80s, you had the hair bands, but you also had Guns N' Roses, and you had, the Black Crowes in the early 90s, and then you had Pearl Jam and Soundgarden. And then in the aughts and the 2010s, like there's nothing really that came out that you could really kind of, hold on to, or kind of like, that's the new rock band. And I feel like this band is that band for me, because it scratches that itch, and they're really genuine rock. I mean, you just got to see it. I mean, I'll tell anybody. Even my mom and my sister are like, "Whoa, these guys are really good," And so it's just something for everybody, And it really kind of, I highly recommend it. Highly recommend listening to them.
Nice. I think I will check them out.
I also have go ahead.
I was going to say, is that what you say, even if you're not going to check it out, you say, I will check it out, but I'm not lying. I will. I promise this time I will check it out.
I would suggest too, like, check out their live stuff from a couple years ago, and then I would go back, because, or listen, because their album Keep Me Fed that they released last year is great. Every song is a banger, but also the live version of them, they're dialed in. They're great. Yeah. So I also have a little like kind of honorable mention I want to mention really quick before we get to your stuff. Plus I want to hog all the attention here. So that's why I'm doing this. But you mentioned that you were might go see Morrissey. One of mine, another one is Niall Marr, Johnny Marr's son. Came out with an album called Are You Happy Now? It came out in, I think, 20 or 21. Scott, I think you'll love this one. It's jangly. It's kind of has that Smiths feel in some of these songs. But he plays in all these different tunings, so he has a really unique sound. It's not really, when I listen to it, I'm like, is that a D or is that an open? I can't even figure it out, but not that I'm the greatest. It's called Are You Happy Now? It's got 12 or 10 songs on it. I highly recommend you check that out. I think it's something that you will like too. So those are my two things.
I will add that to the list as well.
Yes.
I'm getting a list to pile up here. I'm not writing it down either virtually or physically, but it's somewhere on a list in my head. I can always go back to this episode and be like, what was that Steve was talking about? Yeah. Or you can check us on our socials, and I'm sure we're going to be posting all these different...
that's a good
all these different things on our Insta and stuff. So check us out there. And if you don't feel like you have to write it down right now, we'll hit you there. But I was caught when you were talking about them doing like a rock opera, because I'm always a fan of bands that just don't make music but build like a mythos. right? And the band I want to talk about and recommend is called Castle Rat. And it
That's
sounds like
right,
it
yes.
sounds like it's like the band from Parks and
Parks and
Rec,
Rec.
right? Doesn't it sound like that? Like Castle Rat. But
Mouse rat.
it's imagine if a doom metal band got lost on their way to a Renaissance fair, right? That's what Castle Rat is. They're a Brooklyn-based band. They lean hard into medieval fantasy aesthetics, armor, swords, plagues, witches, the whole nine yards. Musically, they live somewhere between like early Black Sabbath and Electric Wizard, with a theatrical streak that makes their live shows feel like you're watching a dark fantasy movie scored by like a stoner metal band. Like it feels like when I think of metal, just generic metal. This is the type of sound that I feel is metal. It's that kind of long kind of beats, but then drawn out vocals.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
kind of metal, not like scream metal. Scream metal isn't my thing. And I'm definitely not a metal person, but this band like checks those boxes for almost nostalgic metal to me. When it feels like they could have a cult following if they existed in '83, right? Following,
Okay.
playing in
All right.
some tiny club where everyone's in costume. There's a guy in the corner selling bootleg patches, but seeing them live is where it's at. I got to see them last week in Berkeley. I knew nothing about them a couple days before that. A friend had an extra ticket, invited me. I was like, yeah, let's do this. But in person, it just hits harder on stage. You've got commitment there. It's not just some tongue-in-cheek gimmick. It's fully fleshed out world that they've built. The lead singer is known as the Rat Queen. She performs in chainmail. She commands the stage like some combination of Joan of Arc and Ozzy Osbourne, right? And the songs tell stories about knights and necromancers and cursed lands. There's this slow, heavy, hypnotic groove that just pulls you in. It scratches the same itch as a really good D&D campaign or like a midnight horror flick on VHS, right? You're like you get sucked into it. The breakout song was Dagger Dragger. If you only listen to one track, that sells their vibe altogether. But they have
What was it again?
Dagger Dragger. That's the kind of main track. That was off their first album. They have two albums. The most recent one just came out. First album was called Into the Realm, and that was in 2024. And then the most recent one was called The Bestiary, which was just a couple weeks ago. So they, let me see what details I can give you here. So they're made up of, they did their first live show in 2019. They're out of Brooklyn. They're signed to King Volume Records, and they have European and UK distribution. They just did a tour over there too. But the lead singer is the Rat Queen. She's the main songwriter, rhythm guitar. Then you have the Count, who's the lead guitar. You have the Plague Doctor playing bass, big Plague Doctor mask the whole show. You gotta respect that, like Max Sabbath and Gwar and all those other bands that actually put on masks. You have the Druid on drums, and then you have the Rat Reaperess, who isn't in the band but is like their stage nemesis. She comes out and there's interaction, and it's kind of like a portal opened, and now they're there playing for you, and they do a chant along the call and return of this moment is forever, and then everyone yells, in this realm. This moment is forever in this realm. It's so fun. I like bands like this where it's not just a rock band. It's a mythos. It's a big building of an event if you go see them live. Not like the band where it was all Ned Flanders dudes playing heavy metal. I forget their name. That's gimmicky, right? That's like get them in. Hey, they're all dressed like Ned Flanders, but they sing metal. This is a true rock band. They're on the cover of I think Decibel magazine this month. If you kids remember what magazines were, they're like the books you read in school, but they're thinner and glossier.
They have pictures.
They have pictures in them, lots of pictures. So I think they're pretty close to just breaking. They're going to start working their way up that same festival circuit and moving their way up and up those stages and up that playing later in showtimes,
Yeah.
pretty quickly
Yeah.
here.
That's the goal right there, I think. It's so cool listening to you describe the band. Um, there's this really kind of era, I guess in the 80s where heavy metal was really what we would probably consider now just rock, but back then it was heavy metal. And
Hmm.
then there was this jump, and I think it had a lot to do with it was with Metallica and Megadeth and all those kind of types of bands. Slayer, that it just took a jump into this more harsher, kind of screamier, shouting more lyrically, or vocally, it's like more shouting. Where I think you had that earlier era, like Twisted Sister and Quiet Riot and Striper and all these kind of bands that were just kind of more, their vocals were more melodic and, like I said, would probably be more considered now just rock. But and also, you said they were from where were they from? New York?
Brooklyn, yeah.
Brooklyn. So like I think that's a thing. Like New York has this really kind of vibrant theatrical part of their music scene because Kiss came from I think the Bronx or something, or Kiss came from New York. But I don't know where I forget where they came from, but they were very theatrical, and when they came out, they were considered heavy metal and really kind of satanic but yeah, it's something about New York, man. They have those bands that really get into it, and that's what you like to see, right? Like
Hmm.
you love to see. It doesn't matter what it is; you just love to see that commitment. And when you see that level of commitment, it's really easy to kind of buy in and be like, yeah, this band's legit. And it's really a kind of breath of fresh air because I think for so long in the rock was the original like punk rock. It was really this kind of rebellion, and you don't see that nowadays with rock bands. They're very stoic and very like black. Wear black. I mean, I wear black all the time, but wear black, and they're just like this. It's all this kind of same thing. It's good to see theatrics back into music. Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching more stuff like that.
Yeah, it's yeah, you can have fans that dress up for it, right, and get really into it that way. But there were a lot of just jean vests with patches on them. A lot of
Yeah.
dudes with that. So you can tell that like the hardcore metal people like, no, we accept this band. This band is great. And then you have the people that are like, yeah, they dress up fully and they're more into that aspect of it. So they kind of hit from both angles. They walk the walk and talk the talk, right? That's not
Yeah.
just a gimmicky metal band. And stage show wise, they have, the book they have the book called the Bestiary of all the animals in the realm or whatever, and that's the Rat Reapers wants to steal that so she can take over the realm, and
Uh-huh.
they've got swords and stuff, and they battle, and Rat Reapers stabs the Rat Queen, and she dies on stage, and you start go, love is forever in this realm, love
Uh-huh.
is forever. And she ends up coming back to life and killing the Rat Reapress, and spoiler alert, she doesn't really die, it's just a stage show.
Dude, that's an asshole move, dude. Don't
I
spoil it.
should have warned it sooner, but yeah, it's just a great show. And then we got to meet them afterwards. They're at the level where they come out after and hang out at the merch booth, and just super grateful and happy to be there and happy to see the fans. And they're gonna be moving out of 300 people rooms really quickly.
Yeah. Again, man, it's really cool to see some rock bands kind of control their own destiny. I think, and like what I was saying about the warning was, and what's familiar about that with this band is that you're watching them from the beginning, and you're
Mhm.
seeing that voyage, and it makes it that much more sincere, I guess is the word, earnest, because that they're putting in the work, that they're putting in the hours and they're grinding, and they're tired, and they probably haven't had a good meal or a shower, but they're out there fucking playing their hearts out for you because they love it, and they it's just good. It's just good to see, man. There's too many, and I'm in this too. Is that there's just too many people at home, trying to make it from their house, and they just release music, but then that's it. You don't see them on tour, and And record labels now are kind of signing people. How many followers do you have on Instagram or whatever, and it's this new metric that they're kind of holding you under to whether you get signed or not. And it's just good to see bands out there grinding it out. And I love it. Love to see it. Love it.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, where do you want to dive next? You want to go?
Let's
film? You want to go TV? You want to go books?
Let's go TV. I want to hear what you guys do. You start this off.
Okay. So for TV, I had a hard time deciding on what to choose because I don't feel like I've been watching a lot of TV shows lately. I've been watching Big Brother. It's summertime. Big Brother is on, and so we watch that like 3 times a week. We watch Love is Blind when that comes on, and that's always in the background. But a lot of time I'm just on my phone while something's in the background.
Yeah.
And then it clicked to me that season 3 of a show just got released. So I'm like, well, this would be a good time to talk about it because this is something that's been a long time coming and is a really good show that we enjoyed the first 2 seasons of. My wife and I watched it during COVID, which is when we watched a lot of good stuff, right? You were more open to just giving things a chance back then. So when Squid Games exploded during COVID, everyone was suddenly on the hunt for their next fix, right? Dystopian dodgeball. That's what people were into. And right there, waiting patiently like the kid that did the project 3 weeks early, was a series called Alice in Borderland. And most people assumed it was Netflix's attempt to ride the Squid Game wave, but the plot twist is it actually came first. It's based on a manga. It predates, Squid Games by a decade from the manga to Squid Games. And the show dropped a full year earlier, but it, didn't get that traction. So once Squid Games hit, people wanted more of that style, and it was just sitting there waiting on the shelf for them to come find it. It's the quiet honor roll kid who already solved the puzzle while the rest of us were still filling in the corners of it. The premise of the show, it's deceptively simple, right? It's a group of friends are goofing off in modern day Tokyo at that big giant crosswalk in Shibuya.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So where you see all the video of people crossing it, so many people. They're goofing off there, and then they run, to avoid the police to go down into like a bathroom. And then also the lights flicker, and they come back out, and everyone has disappeared. The city is empty. The power's still on, but just everything's empty. And then all of a sudden they find this kind of room where it's like the game starts here. And you walk in there, and then all of a sudden they're forced to participate in a series of increasingly intense survival games. Not just like run fast and hope for the best type of games. That's kind of what you get from a lot of Squid Games. Each one is themed around a suit of playing cards. The lead character is supposed to be Alice. He goes into Borderlands. And then there's different characters that kind of like the Cheshire Cat and the Mad Hatter, but not really, just more alluded to and not more actually like the book. It just uses as kind of a framework. So depending on which card game that is, what game you're going into, will be like, this is a 3 of clubs, or this is a 8 of spades. So spades means it's a physical endurance thing. Clubs means it's a teamwork thing. Diamonds is a logical thing. And then hearts are where things get personal. Like, you're going to have to make some heartfelt choices between you and your friends. So if you like psychological manipulation, moral panic, under a ticking clock, that's what this show is. Have you heard about it at all?
Mm-mm.
See,
no.
It's one of those things where it's just kind of sitting there on Netflix. The first 2 seasons were great. The manga actually ended with season 2. So they just released season 3, which is completely all new territory. And a lot of people were frustrated because it did kind of wrap up after that season 2, right? It had its story told, but they left a little dangling participle there, right? There's a little something that you could go, okay, great. Well, maybe they could build off of this. And so this is a 6-episode season 3 that dives kind of right back into it. And it gives you some more explanation about the whole world as a whole and kind of what were they into and how did they get there and what did it all mean. It's great. It's a great show. It's got lots of escape room type elements to it because they go into these games. And in the original series, they were in this world and they would go into a game, and then winning the game would buy them a certain amount of time before they had to play another game. And it was an open world system. So like you could choose which game you wanted to go to. So if you wanted to do like a lower card, like a 3 of clubs, you could do that, but you might only buy yourself a day until you have to play another game. But if you wanted to a harder game, then you could buy yourself a week, and then you don't have to play for a while. So you've got people teaming up and trying to work together and trying to figure out what's going on. You've got people that were friends before now having to kind of turn on themselves. And it's also kind of like Lost, where it shows you characters and you think you know about them, but then they go back and show you a backstory. And I love those types of shows because it's like you're rooting for you think it's the villain, but you look back and there's more to that villain than you really thought there was. There's more heart to them. They were forced into the Yakuza, you know what I mean? Or they were just pretending to be in the Yakuza. Like they're not really this hard ass person. So it's kind of like Lost and Sawyer, and you go back and you get to see those past things. But it's great. It's a good show. It's addictive. It does the things like Squid Games where you're at the end of the episode and there's definitely a cliffhanger at the end of each one. You're like, God damn it, I got to start the next one. Okay, fine, I'll do that.
That's interesting because I feel like I'm not really into those type of TV. I don't even know how to describe it. Like, so it's a TV show, but it's also a game show. Is that what it is?
Yeah, not like real life game show, but it's the people in the TV show are kind of part of a game show, and
all
so
right.
You didn't get into Squid Games at all. Like you didn't watch Squid Games? Wow.
No, I didn't get into Tiger King. I didn't get into that either. Did you watch that at all?
Yeah, Tiger King was great. Just as a reality show person, yes, Tiger King was great.
Yeah,
same thing with like the Chimp Show that just came out. The woman hiding the chimpanzee. Yeah, that's my wheelhouse.
Yeah, I just didn't get into those shows, and not because they didn't seem interesting, or it was just one of those things. I'm really, for me, like I have to watching a TV show is kind of an investment of your time, and so as I get older, I start to get really picky about what shows I watch. Case in point, I would not recommend watching Alien Earth. Because it's just things like this where you watch something, you get kind of invested, and then it just blows the landing, and you're like, "Wait, who wrote this?" It's kind of like the acolyte in Star Wars. Like you're watching it and you're going, "What?" And so, for me to pick a TV show to watch, I really have to either hear a lot of good things about it, what you're saying. A lot of good things and why you liked it. So this is kind of like, okay, maybe I should check this out because a lot of times, especially now, everybody's kind of relying on legacy characters and legacy kind of plots of, to bigger IPs. Yeah, like I said, it's just an investment.
I have a hard time doing
Borderland,
that.
Right?
Alice in Borderland. Yeah, I have a hard time with that too because my wife will be like, "Do you want to watch a movie or a show? Start a show." And I'm always like, "Let's do a movie," because I know that's 2 hours of my life, and then I can walk away from it.
Yeah.
A show, you're like, okay, well, how many seasons is there here? Like, if she goes, well, there's like 7 seasons, it's like 20 episodes a season. I'm like, I can't do it. Like, even me, I haven't watched Game of Thrones. I heard great things about it. I know they're not long seasons either. But I know once I get into it, I'm going to have to watch the whole thing. And I'm like, that's a lot of time.
Yeah. I think that one you could, I kind of held off, but really for like 2 years maybe. I think I got it. No, 3 years. I think I got into it in the 3rd season. I was like, okay, I'll check it out. And then once I did, it's a great point. It's because when it turns out not to be, Game of Thrones turned out to be horrible ending too, as well. They just don't stick the landing in the ending. So you kind of have that in the back of your mind. But I was getting in, there could be one thing in the whole thing could be bad, but there's one thing that's like, I want to see what happens to this character. So that that's what happened to me in Alien Earth was, I didn't really get into it. The first couple episodes were kind of like uneven, but there was this one character in it that I was like, oh. And then in the middle of the series, he kind of has this confrontation with this kind of newer model of this synthetic, right? And I was like, okay, cool. I got to see what happens to these two guys. Like, I'm just going to watch it for these two guys because everything else is stupid. And then at the end, and I'm like, I just wasted 2 months of this. Fucking, I can't believe it. They had, like, I feel stupid. And so it's like, I gotta just have like Game of Thrones. Like, for instance, people were just saying, dude, it's really good. You should watch it. And I'm like, I probably will. I just have to find the time. Like, it's not like with me and Severance. It was like when season 2 was going to come out, I was like, oh, I've heard such good things about this. Maybe I'll check it out. And then I did, and I was hooked. But even this new season that came out this year, it was like, I watched the first like 3 episodes, and then there was 6 out or something. I let the episodes go so I could watch it. And then I was like, and then I didn't watch it for like a couple months. So I had to restart it, and it was like, but that was it was good. So it was relatively good. And so it wasn't that bad, but yeah, I mean, it's horrible to invest time in something and have it just be crap.
Do you feel like our generation, like we've got that PTSD from getting burned by the television networks where you could get into something and then it just disappears?
Yeah.
Because growing up, you could be into a show and the next week they've just replaced it with reruns of Roseanne or something, right?
Yeah.
You didn't know, where it went. You had to wait till TV Guide came out to maybe see something in there that tells you what happened to the show. Or the Sunday paper where you get the little cheap free TV Guide inside it, the little thinner one. It feels like we grew up on that, and nowadays streaming will they'll either slow feed you one a week, which is great. At least the whole season is done at that point. So if you like it, there's going to be somewhat of an ending that makes sense. Maybe it's a cliffhanger and they don't get picked up, but at least you're going to get that kind of arc finished. And we didn't have that as kids, so I feel like I'm always like, are they going to pull this away from me?
Yeah, that happened to me. It started off with Saturday morning cartoons. In the 80s, there was this kind of boom in pop culture. So there was constantly being cartoons made about, Teen Wolf or Teddy Ruxpin or Cabbage Patch Kids, Rubik's Cube. For this example I'm going to say is they had this Rubik's Cube cartoon. It was called Rubik's The Amazing Cube. And these kids found him and he could do all this magic and stuff. But if someone mixed his colors, then he would just be a regular Rubik's Cube. So you had to find him and match all the sides up again. And then he would come back to life. And as a kid, I'm like 10 years old, 8 years old, whatever, whenever it came out. And then I would watch it. I'd be like, oh, cool. Because I watched everything. Like, I just watched from 7 a.m. till 11. I just watched cartoons. I didn't care. I had my favorites, but, And then it just disappeared one week. I think it only lasted like maybe 4 weeks, 4 episodes, 5 episodes, something like that. And then it was gone. And then it happens with TV shows. Like, I think in 2005, they had this TV show called Sons and Daughters. And it was on ABC. And it aired right after the Super Bowl. So obviously you have that lead in. So it was really popular. And it was funny. It was like Curb Your Enthusiasm before Curb Your Enthusiasm. Or maybe it was around the same time that they came out. But it was totally improv. And I remember reading an article saying that the cast, they just had outlines for each scene, for each episode in each scene. And you could tell. I mean, there were times when they would be doing a scene and they would just like start to make each other laugh, and they would just be like, and there was actual scenes where they were just like, yeah, okay, yeah, and because it was just funny, and then I watched, I think it was like 5 or 6 episodes, and then it was gone, and I was like, well, wait, what happened? I love this, and it was just low ratings, and I'm like, how does this get low ratings? Yeah, so I think that plays a part of it,
What do you got for show to recommend to us?
Well, for me, you heard what I don't recommend, which is Alien Earth.
Which is now we're gonna have to do a podcast of our don't watch this,
Yeah.
don't listen to like movies that we just hate that we've walked out of.
I'm not going to talk too much about this because I have one that I want to recommend. But Andor, go see Andor. That's a great TV show. I think it's a callback to political intrigue and rebellion. That's an origin story and of sorts, about where the origin of the Star Wars kind of Rebel Alliance kind of how it started, basically. And so I would say go see that. It's by Tony Gilroy, and he's a big 70s kind of crime thriller aficionado. So there's a lot of that in this. That's great. But the one I really want to recommend is Silo. Is on Apple TV. Now, this was one that I have Apple TV, so I would see when you go into Apple TV, the on the home screen, they have like their TV shows like really big, and so it's kind of like Netflix, same kind of deal where they'd have the TV show on top, and then it shifts to another one, and this one always kind of stood out that way because it has Rebecca Ferguson, who was in the Mission Impossible franchises. And, but I had seen this one series called Invasion, and it was kind of hard to get into because it was really wordy and the world bit. That's the one thing that Apple TV does really well, though, is the world building. Sometimes it's a little tedious, but if you stick through it, then it pays off. And that's what happened with Silo. Toby told me about it. Oh, you should check out Silo. It's really good. Okay. All right. And it's like this dystopian type of thing. And it's based on Hugh Howey's Wool novels. So he has 1, 2, and 3. And so this series takes parts of those into each season. It only has 2 seasons, but they're going to make a third one, which looks really exciting. It's just about these people that live in the silo that's, I think, like 100 floors, and it just in the middle, there's all these steps you can go all the way down. And I think they said it takes a whole day to get from the top to the bottom. The bottom is where it's kind of set up like society. So the bottom is where the engines are for everything, for the water, for the air, purification stuff, for the heat, all this kind of stuff is, so if you work down there, then you're kind of living in that area. As you get higher and higher, you get the higher ups, you get the more affluent kind of people, you get security. And then on the top, basically you have the people that run everything. And it's this really cool thing because Rashida Jones is in the first 2 episodes, I think, of the first season. And she is married to the sheriff. And basically what it is that everybody lives in the silo. They can't go outside because it's toxic, and you last like maybe a minute, 2 minutes outside. But if you say I want to go outside, then you have to go outside. Like they send you out. They put a suit on you, and then they send you out, and you still die. And the one thing is that they come in. Whoever goes outside cleans off because everybody can see the outside from this like kind of cafeteria style place, and they go and they wipe the camera clean because it gets cloudy, and so they clean it, and then they go and they fall over and they die. And so it's kind of like you start to kind of I was about to spoil the second the whole thing, but you got to watch it. It's really cool. It's let's see. It's every floor of the silo has its own character, from the oily mechanical basements to the sterile upper offices. It's warm but moody lighting and practical sets give it kind of a lived-in feel. So it's kind of like this thing of there's a lot of green screen, but you can't tell because it blends so nice and so cool. It brings up themes like truth versus control, class and geography, and curiosity and fear. So it's always this fine line between like what's out there and don't go out there, And so some really cool stuff happens at the end of season 1, and it gets you in it gets you into the world building, and some really cool characters come out of season 2. And I'm looking forward to season 3 because it's such a great show. The writing's really good. There's hardly any kind of like plot holes. I mean, there's a couple, but it's so good anyways, and the acting's really good. Tim Robbins is in it, and he plays this kind of like upper class snob dude that runs everything. And he's really good in it. And Common is in it. And so it's a great TV show. I recommend it. It's on Apple TV. And if you can get through the first couple episodes, which are good, they're not, but they're a little slow burning, but they're good. Then you'll have no problem with it. I highly recommend this TV show.
It sounds like a vertical, stationary Snowpiercer.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. It's kind of like that same idea. And it has like, there's a lot of greens and browns and grays and charcoal color palettes. And then as you get up higher, you get a little more colorful. Now you get some wool, like reds, deep reds, burgundies, and a little lighter. The lighting is a little more brighter. So yeah, it's kind of like Snowpiercer. Yeah.
Nice. That's something I probably will take you up on.
Huh?
I will. I mean,
forget about The Warning. Forget about Nilemar. This one's it.
Yep. This is one I'll probably take you up on, because it seems like it's something my wife and I would enjoy, because it's the stuff we like. We like dystopian. Patton Oswalt, his first book was called Zombie Spaceship Wasteland, and it was because he said when you become like a teenager, like you like one of those three types of genres, because it describes who you are and your outlook on life. Either you're into zombies, you're into outer space, or into like apocalyptic wasteland.
Yeah. And dude, if you, at the end of season 1, there's some great kind of reveals that you kind of think that you kind of are thinking throughout the season, like, and then when it happens, you're like, yeah, okay. And yeah. And then the end of season 2, I heard that they're doing season 3. So, the end of season 2 is really interesting. It's just a great show. I liked it. Each episode too is like, it's not like Sci-Fi Network kind of stuff. It's more of like high-end filming. So each episode just looks great, you know.
It's funny that you say like Sci-Fi Network stuff, because I know what you mean by that.
Yeah.
I know when, the cable
sets.
days. Yeah, cable days. You had Sci-Fi Network, and it's like they'd put some intriguing stuff on there, some non-mainstream stuff, but then the way
sets.
it was handled was just not. It was definitely, you're like, yeah, this isn't CBS or ABC or HBO.
Right.
This is Sci-Fi Network.
Yeah, it looks great. And so, what you got next?
Let's see. Do you want to? So let's stay on the visual media. Let's do movies.
Okay.
Let's see. So I'll start with movies. Let me see where my notes are here. All right. So you and I have talked about this one. I don't think you've ever seen it, and maybe we'll do a deep dive either here or we're going to see my friends about it. But I wanted to talk about a really old, quote unquote, horror movie. In the early days of horror cinema, back when Universal Monsters were still getting their sea legs, there was one film that truly unsettled audiences. Not with capes and castles, but with something far more real. This is Todd Browning's Freaks from 1932. It isn't just a horror movie. It's about morality, wrapped in a circus tent. Todd Browning was one of Hollywood's most daring directors, right? He thrived on the strange and unsettling. Before this, he had a massive hit with Dracula, Bela Lugosi's Dracula, 1931. But he wasn't a studio horror workhorse, right? He didn't just do those horror movies. He had a long fascination with circus life and outsiders. He had his own background as a carnival performer in his youth. So Dracula made him a household name, but Freaks kind of revealed what he wanted to say. He came up during the silent era. He had those visual storytelling, paired well with like Lon Chaney's stuff. He did a lot of Lon Chaney movies, The Unknown, The Unholy Three. In those silent movies, you had to rely on expression and body language. When sound arrived, he made that leap with Dracula, one of his early talkie horror hits. But you can feel his like stage play roots still, because everything back then was like a stage play. You had to like play for the people in the back of the room. Yeah. So everyone over exaggerated their gestures and their movements and facial expressions. So when he got the time to make this movie, there was a lot of outrage over it. It's set in a traveling circus. It follows Cleopatra, who's a beautiful trapeze artist, and Hercules, who's the strong man. And they conspire to have her marry and murder Hans, who's a wealthy little person, for his inheritance. Sounds like a fever dream, right? Like, but it's really at its core. It's like, it's hey, let's murder this person. Let's take their money and murder them. But the sideshow performers, who are usually mocked as freaks, right? Ultimately, they band together and protect their own. They welcome her in because she's, he loves her. Hans loves her, supposedly, and they welcome her in, and that's where you get, the Ramones, Gabba Gabba, we accept you, one of us. That's from Freaks. It's from this movie. They start chanting this and pounding on the table. It's a great scene from the movie. But then they find out that she was only in it for the money, and so all of these sideshow characters who were real life sideshow characters. These were real people. It wasn't makeup. It wasn't acting. These people the Pinhead girls were Pinhead girls. They had the deformities. There was a gentleman that had no arms and no legs. You had all of these people that were cast because of how they looked. And so a lot of people felt like that was, just using them. It was just using them. And
like exploiting them?
Exploiting them, for sure. And, but he wasn't, because he came from a film background. He's like, I just want authenticity. I want these people. Yeah. And if you look at the story as a whole, it's about community. It's about these people, like finding the ones you love, regardless of, who they are or what they look like, and standing up for them. But the backlash ended his career at MGM. He never regained the clout that he had after Dracula, after Freaks. The movie itself has been banned. It was banned in several countries. MGM cut about 10 minutes of footage after test screenings. That lost footage has never been recovered. So the real movie itself, it just doesn't exist anymore. But you can find, what was the end all cut of it on online and on DVD. But it's nearly a century later. It still hits a nerve, right? It flips the script. The freaks are the ones who were the genuine community, loyalty, and moral clarity, and the beautiful people are the ones that were the true monsters. And that's the story of it. But back then, and even now, you can watch it and be like, oh, he's just exploiting them. It's like, no, he's telling a story, and he's just using these people as the real characters in it. It's bold, it's weird, it still feels dangerous. And it's more unsettling than scary. And part of that is the realism of the people that he chose to be in it.
That's an interesting thing, film, because we had talked about it before, and it's almost like a forgotten thing. I tend to, I'll include myself in this, is like I tend to think about horror really starting like, maybe Dracula and then on. But I just think of horror in that aspect of like the classic Dracula, Wolfman, Frankenstein, all that kind of stuff. And then you get into the 60s and you get Hammer films, and in the 70s it kind of separates and you get more of a kind of a violent thing, and then the early 80s you get really violent. And it's interesting to see, because maybe we should do a Gonna See My Friends episode on that, because it's really interesting. It would be interesting to dive in and do a deep dive on that and just kind of uncover all these kind of neat tidbits about it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's something I'm interested in. So
yeah, it'd be interesting to have someone like Toby, who I don't know if he's ever seen it, but if he's never seen it, someone who's never seen it and heard the backstory of it and got into it. If Toby hasn't seen it, that would be amazing, right?
Yeah. You'd be just like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think with mine, um, I'm not a big fan of this movie per se, but I think it's important that people watch this movie because I feel like it does highlight some really kind of crucial things in terms of. I'm going to go with you, like the horror thing, the horror genre, not the thing, the horror genre. I think it highlights where kind of the true horror in a kind of a realistic way is kind of where I think it needs to go. Not everything. I mean, there's still room for everything, but you really. And I'm a mainstream type of guy when it comes to horror. I'm not like I don't go off in the fringes of the genre or anything. And so, if anybody can let me know that there's movies like this, and there have been in certain aspects. Anyways, let me get to the movie. It's called Bone Tomahawk. Came out in 2015. I just saw it about a month or two ago. It was on Netflix. And have you seen it, Scott?
I have not. No, I haven't even heard of it.
So, yeah, it's a Western horror kind of thing. It's like it reminds me of From Dusk Till Dawn, where you have this kind of like road trip thriller kind of thing in the beginning, and then it turns into a gory vampire flick at the end. And this one it's a Western, and it stars Kurt Russell, Patrick Wilson, Matthew Fox, and Richard Jenkins. And a group of people are kind of are kind of stolen from this town in the Old West by some troglodytes, and I didn't know what troglodytes were. I had to look it up after this movie, but basically like cave dwellers. And they get this stolen. So Kurt Russell forms this posse and says, "Okay, well we can track them. We'll go get the people back." And so the first half of this movie, I would say the first like hour of this movie, is basically that. It's these people get abducted, and then they form the posse, and then they take their horses and they just follow these. They get this. They bring in this Indian or this Native American, and he was like, "Yeah, they're the troglodytes, over by in the cave system over. They know where the caves are and stuff, and they're usually expelled from their tribe for being too extreme, and so they make their home in these caves." And so they're like, "Oh, that's probably where they took him. So let's go." And so they go, and it's just these three guys that are just talking, and you're like, "Oh, what is this movie?" And then it turns into just pure horror and gore, and it really it really kind of turned my stomach, and it's really gory. But I think that that's what works. Now, I saw a couple of other it's directed by S. Craig Zahler, and I saw a couple other of his movies. He likes to work with Mel Gibson. So there's one called Dragged Across Concrete. It's like a crime thriller, but then it gets gory. He's into this like gore, the way he kills people and stuff. And I wasn't really a big fan. Everybody was like, "This guy's the new Tarantino. He's this and that." He's Vince Vaughn's worked with him a couple times, and so he's really kind of he's really a big fan of this guy. And so I watched a couple of his movies, and I just really wasn't impressed. It's really kind of too what's the word? God damn it! I had the word and then I forget it. Old man brain. But anyways, just not really a big fan of his work. But I like that what he did with this in terms of kind of mixing genres and then kind of subverting that expectation, because you think it's going to be like, oh, he's going to do it. He's going to kill this person like that off screen, and no, they do it. They do it without cuts, or no, they do a couple cuts, I should say. But the way they kill people is just, and it's so the style and atmosphere Its deliberate dialogue and long stretches of tension evoke the 1970s kind of westerns, The Searchers, Miss McCabe, and Miss Miller. Brutal practical effects, like I said, dude. It's really brutal and really gory. It's sudden, so when it's sudden, it shocks you, and you're not ready for it. And along with that, it's the realism behind, or the reaction to it and then the sound design. It's really, there's not really a lot of score. It brings a lot of ambience to it. And then the tribal calls are really cool. They're really chilling and really kind of creepy. So yeah, it's Kurt Russell. He plays the main character, their stoic sheriff. Richard Jenkins, Matthew Fox, and Patrick Wilson, and not people you would normally see in kind of starring roles. But I would highly recommend this. It's really where I think. And again, I don't know if this is a subgenre of horror, but it should be, and it should kind of, because I'm kind of, and maybe you feel the same. I don't know, but it's like in the 80s, I watched like The Evil Dead, and to me that was what kind of this is back then. I saw it in the 80s, and I couldn't sleep for like a week after I saw that movie. I was so scared, and the practical effects and the sound design, everything. And so I think for me, we've gotten away from that. Now there's a lot more CGI and a lot more like that cutting kind of editing, and sometimes it just doesn't hit as well as, and one of my gripes about the new, I have many gripes about the new remake of The Exorcist, but there's so many things they could have done they should have done to kind of make it more hard hitting. And instead they just thought that if they say mean things, and if they say like this kind of evil kind of speak, then that's enough. And it's in this day and age, you gotta go for the home run, man. You gotta go for the Hail Mary. So I think this film does that. It does it really well. Although I'm not a big fan of this S. Craig Zoller. I just don't like his films. I mean, I like this one to the extent of it showed me something different. And so, yeah. Anyways, that's my movie.
Yeah, you can have gore just for gore's sake, and then you can have it be part of the actual thread of the movie, right?
Yeah.
The actual seaming of the movie together. And you really have to with gore. Either you have to be like, this is just a gory movie. That's the purpose of this movie is, Terrifier, right? Terrifier is a gory movie. All three movies, it's just about gore and shock value versus plot line and acting in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when you have something that's realistic, but you have a really good story behind it and the acting calls for it, then it feels like it's even more disturbing and unsettling.
And it hits harder when it's like that. When there's a little, when it's grounded in some realism, then you can kind of inject yourself into that position because it just seems normal. It just seems like, oh, this is something that anybody would do in this situation. And then when you hit the gore and the violence in there, you're like, where you like you said, excellent point. It's like when it's just gore, then it's just like, oh, okay, yeah, that's rough, but cool, So
good. Yeah. That's another one I will check out. I'm not just gonna blow smoke up your butt. I think I will check that one out. So books. Last subject is books. Steve, do you want to kick off books, or you want me to kick off books?
Sure. I'll kick it off. This one I just finished reading for the second time. The first time I bought it, I think I bought it back in May or June, and I read it front to back in like a couple of days. And this is what I do with books, is that if I really like it, then I'll just keep it around and kind of read certain sections. Oh, I like that section. I'm going to read that. So this book is called From Under the Truck by Josh Brolin, who's an actor. He was in Goonies. That was his first movie. He played the older brother.
I was looking up there because I'm like, I have that up there.
Oh, yeah.
I have a signed copy.
Of that book?
Mm-hmm.
Dude, you've read it then?
No,
Oh, you should.
I
You
just
should.
collect stuff for the autographs.
The way he writes inspired me to. I think it kind of kicked off my inspiration to start writing more because he writes in a kind of a not prose, but I really don't know how to explain it. It's more poetic. It's like he's describing a scene from a movie. It's almost, yeah, poetic is how I would describe it. It's um, very visceral, very kind of like you can see it. You can kind of, and there's like a love there for that. You can tell that when he's writing about a certain incident in his life, it's not just, well, I just did this and this, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then we did this, and then that was the end. It's more of not just how he felt in that moment, but he's also he's also including all the elements of it. I was on this movie set. I was sitting in this diner in the middle of the desert. The sweat was pouring off my head. It felt like a sauna. He just gets into the nitty gritty of how he felt in that moment, which I think is great because I think a lot of kind of biographies or autobiographies, that's what's missing in a lot of them because you can kind of read, I have lots of books on Led Zeppelin, when I was a kid or a teenager. I loved Led Zeppelin, but you don't get the nitty gritty. You get the descriptions of what happened. Oh, they threw a TV off the balcony into the water in Seattle or whatever hijinks, but you never get the feeling of what they were going through and how they were feeling in a way that's kind of, that's kind of like not tangible, but it's like, it's just poetic. That's the only thing I can say. And it's very, I don't know. It's just, there's a lot of stuff. He's like a storyteller. I just didn't expect it from Josh. I just thought I had seen him in a lot of things like interview wise. He's very articulate. He's very kind of rough around the edges type of person who will always tell you how it is. He's gone through his addictions in his life and he's overcome those. And he has a new wife and, well, not new, but in the last 10 years. And, he's one of those people I think are the actors that are really kind of the artists. They embrace the artistry of not just acting, but the way he rides a bike or the way he writes or the way he kind of presents himself is very kind of not actorly, because I like actors. They're great. I love that industry, but it can be a little self-indulgent at times, or not little, but there's a lot of self-indulgence and there's not a lot of humanity sometimes in some of these things that we watch. It's just like, hey, look, I'm a star. I'm in this movie kind of thing. I'll still watch them though. But this Josh is he's more of the, I don't know what to call him. Just an artist, that comes through in this book. Highly recommended. From Under the Truck by Josh Brolin.
Nice. I'll add on a side tip there when I talked about having it and having it autographed. To anybody out there that's into, books, even fiction, nonfiction, whatever it might be, but specifically these autobiographies of celebrities, a lot of times if you go online to Books A Million and sites like that, if you pre-order it, they'll have signed copies. And it's the same price as a normal book that you would get, but if you get in there early enough, you can get a signed copy of these autobiographies. And when it's a normal, everyday author, that's great if you're really into books. But when it's a celebrity like this, it's something different. I have, I ordered John Stamos's autograph or biography because of the autograph. I'm like, why not?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't I get John Stamos's autograph?
I think mine is an autograph copy as well.
Nice.
I think now that you bring it up.
Yeah, Billy D. Williams, I've got his autobiography that's signed by him. just all these random ones, and you get that autograph kind of for free. And whether you care about autographs or not, it just kind of adds a little flair to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I will have to try to read it along with the other autographed ones up there. I also have I didn't get it through Books a Million, but I got it through my local bookstore that I love. They had a signed copy of a book that Keanu Reeves co-wrote. It's called what is it called? The Book
Dude.
of the Book of Elsewhere.
Okay.
And it was him and another author, and it had both their signatures. I was like, oh, well, yeah, of course I'm buying this. It's got Keanu Reeves' autograph on it.
Yeah.
But my book suggestion is more of a series because it's seven books deep at this point. I started reading it in March. I was like, let me give this a chance. It sounds kind of hokey to begin with. Maybe I'll get into it. Maybe I won't. We'll see. And then the next thing I knew, I was depressed when I got to the end of something, and I was like, I can't get the next book till like this weekend. I can't go get it. Like I want to keep reading. I want to be in this world longer. This is the Dungeon Crawler Carl series from Matt Dinniman. And he started the series writing these books, and they were just ebooks at that point. Starts with book 1 is Dungeon Crawler Carl, and that was in 2021, January 2021. And then he wrote the second book, Carl's Doomsday Scenario, like 6 months later, that came out. And then the Dungeon Anarchist's Cookbook, which came out another, 6 months after that. And so he's putting out these ebooks, and they were getting popular ebooks and audiobooks. And then he got actually picked up so that they could get reprinted and physically printed out.
Nice.
And so that's when I started getting into it. It was when I think there were 5 books at that point that were out, and they started putting them out every couple of months to get caught up. And just recently, the most recent book came out last week in hardcover. All of these hardcovers that they're releasing also have a bonus chapter at the end of a side story still in the same world. So it gives you a reason to buy it if you did purchase the ebooks back when they originally came out. So you get this little side story that kind of goes if you want to be a completionist. But the author is a former artist and printmaker. He's carved out his own little niche in the lit RPG space. And we talked about metal and all the different categories of metal books. You've got all the different types of categories there too, spicy and fantasy and spicy fantasy. But he's in this lit RPG space where it's a book, but it's like a role-playing game. It's like Dungeons and Dragons, or you're playing Final Fantasy. And he's got this knack of blending absurd humor with high stakes plotting in there. He doesn't just throw monsters at the characters, right? It's easy to go, oh, and then this monster showed up and I had to fight him. He builds this kind of death trap feel with the characters. So the story of it all, the premise kicks off fast. Earth is basically turned into a dungeon for the entertainment of alien viewers, right? And so every physical thing out there, every building, every car on the street, they all get compacted and sucked downward, right? And so everyone gets crushed that's inside, and the only people that survive were outside in the open air. And then there's an announcement that the games are going to begin. Go down the staircase, find the closest staircase to you, and go down to start. And so you get a couple minutes to do that, and once you're down there, you're in the game, and it's like it's like you're playing D&D or a video game. You go down, you get your certain traits, your character traits, right? You get your points into strength and charisma and all that sort of stuff, depending on how you came into it. So, your stats would be different than mine walking down those stairs.
Oh, okay.
And then from there, you start to build yourself as a character. You start to get different weapons and clothing and stuff. And just through that first book, you kind of learn the rules of the world. But then as you go through the more of the books, it opens it up into the wider aspect of it where, this is all this is like the Hunger Games. Hunger Games, it's visual candy for everyone throughout the country. And most of the people, that are downtrodden are watching it kind of because they have to, but then people that are at the main district are like, oh, and they're eating caviar and they're watching this as just truly entertainment. They don't live that life of having to be in these games. So you've got all this universe of all these different space creatures and their people, and how, who runs it, and they alternate, and some, these different syndicates will run at different years, and how are they run, and then they're run by an AI. They set up an AI to run the actual game itself, and so then you have these non-playable characters in it that, they're they're real people, and they were real people, but that were in the games before. And then once you get to a certain level in the game, if you survive, you get the chance to get out. And the longer you survive, the better role you get. So if you get out at the earliest point, you might be this just lug that's just carrying stuff around. And but if you go further than that, you could be a trainer, and you could be more in, and you could buy your way out of it after so many seasons. So it's really interesting. It builds this whole world. Each level is basically a book. They'll do 1 or 2 levels in one of the novels. So you have a good stopping place there. If you like Ready Player One, the book, not the movie, the book has a lot of pop culture references that are woven into it, whereas the movie just kind of throws it at you. It's like, look, do you like the DeLorean, right? Well, here's the DeLorean. The book, it's more woven into it. So if you like Ready Player One with the pop culture references and the game mechanics of it, you'd probably like this. If you like the show The Expanse, you might like this because there's a layered world building and evolving stakes as it goes deeper and deeper. Carl learns more and more about what's going on and is trying to take it down from the inside versus just surviving. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, right? That tonal whiplash between cosmic horror and ridiculous banter. There's a lot of just banter in it. If you've ever shouted just, "Oh, come on," at a video game, like you probably like this. It's one of those series where you buckle in expecting goofy distraction, and then 3 books later you're like, "You owe me answers, Kindle. Like, come on, Kindle, give me some more." He's built something that's comfort food for gamers, but also smart and an addictive sci-fi saga.
Oh, that's cool, man. I think just like TV series, I think book series is a really hard thing for me to get to. I think the last book series I read was Dean R. Koontz. He did this Frankenstein series, which took place in modern day. And it was about this guy who was just making people, basically. And it was like, I think 3 or 4, I want to say, maybe I think 3. And it's different. At that time I read... It was hard for me to, had a lot going on. So it was hard for me to kind of stick with the series. But it's the same thing, I think, for me, is like a book series. Oh, shit, I got to read 4 books, 5 books. Oh, shit, I got 10, whatever it is. But yeah, what's the name of the first one? I forgot. I didn't write it down.
Straight up Dungeon Crawler Carl. Yeah, and you can read the first book and then be like, yeah, okay, well, that's great. I don't know that I need any more like that. There's not like a... It's always cliffhanger endings, right? Because he wants you to continue the story on, but you definitely can read the first book and be like, yeah, it was good. It wasn't for me. I don't really care more about this world. I get what was going on. But the further books get chunkier and chunkier. They're almost a full shelf behind me. And it's just going to grow from there. When the series is over, it's going to be like an entire shelf of my library.
Wow. That's cool.
So
I like that.
Dungeon Crawler Carl. It's a good one. It's entertaining. It's light, but it's world building, and give it a shot.
Will do.
Well, that's our list. We've got that's 8+ glorious recommendations for y'all, spanning screen, page, and stage.
And one that you shouldn't watch.
And you got one that you shouldn't watch. So we get a little bonus there. If you don't come away from this episode with at least one new obsession, that's on you. We basically handed you cultural gold. Minimum, you owe us a thanks. Maximum, you can send us a fruit basket. We'll accept DMs, memes, or tagging us when you think check something out that we've listed here. Let us know what stuck, what didn't, and what you'd throw back our way. You can find us on Instagram, hit us on YouTube in our comments, follow, yell at us, whatever fits your vibe. We love hearing from you, and if we recommended something good, let us know. If you want to recommend something to us, there's a valid chance it ends up being on a future episode because we'll check it out. We're pretty open to new things here at whatever this is called. And from all of us here, this is whatever this is called. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.
Bye.